Well, hi everyone. Monday, the 29th of September. We've got a stellar panel on tonight, Johnny. What's happening?
Just got lucky tonight, didn't we?
We did. Club Grubbery time yet again. Everyone's saying wherever you guys been, but life's pretty frantic, isn't it?
Yep, it is. There's a lot
Life's
of things
pretty
going
frantic.
on.
And
Yeah.
I hate to admit it, gentlemen, but there'll be a couple more Club Grubberies for October, but I'm going barra fishing with a mate of mine up in the Hinchinbrook Passage. And I'm going to chill out for good reason. And yep, as Professor Ian Brighthope knows, I've been diagnosed with a mercury overload. Ian Brighthope, not much fun.
Not much fun, Hoodie. It's a wonder you're still as bright and as intelligent as you are
Gee,
with with that load that you've got. But I think you're managing very well. You're looking after your health. You're detoxing,
yeah,
and I think the doctor who's treating you is doing exactly the right things in terms of getting that mercury out of your system. I mean, don't.
yeah,
I wouldn't be. I,
it's,
I wouldn't take myself too seriously when I said you've got a heavy load of mercury, but it is. It is significant. I mean, we're all carrying mercury, arsenic, lead, cadmium, aluminium. I mean, we can't get away from it. Every hair analysis that I did when I was in practice had heavy metals in them, even children. So we live in a toxic environment, and that's why we're here. We're going to clean it up.
that's right. Well, Michelle now calls me thermometer. That's my new nickname. So there you go.
Well,
Not that the temperature rises much these days, gentlemen. But anyway, a great panel, and let's introduce our panel. Firstly, we have on the lower left-hand side of the screen Dr. Phillip Altman, who's a regular. Phillip Altman's had more than 40 years' experience working alongside the TGA in Australia and doing other amazing things in the pharmaceutical industry. Great to have you back on, Phil.
Thank you, guys. Nice to be here.
And of course, Professor Ian Brighthope, newfound fame as co-hosting with me on Health Chats, which is available. I think we're up to about episode 12 or 13 coming up soon, Ian, and people are loving that. And of course, the work you're doing with Acnum and the work you're doing with the world of wellness and the 40 plus years you've done trying to get common sense into the health system. You are much admired and we appreciate your time.
thanks, Hoodie. Good to be here.
A lot of things going on. We're going to unpack the reason we got this panel together is we're going to unpack the recent findings in the USA with RFK and the Maha group over there. In particular, the findings around autism and paracetamol. Very interesting. And a lot of people are finding different points of view around is RFK being effective enough and why haven't they banned this and that. And I think there's a whole bunch of really good logical reasons why that's happening, and we'll hopefully discuss that tonight. But on the news front, I found it really interesting that I watched a Four Corners program on the ABC, which was called what was it called? Big Brethren. That's right. It was 2 weeks ago. Four Corners, Big Brethren. Now, it's an expose on the Exclusive Brethren, which is a very, very powerful organisation. In fact, when I was working for Qantas, they were one of Qantas's biggest corporate clients, Exclusive Brethren. And the expose focused a lot on, apart from some of the practices that they operate within their church, their business interests. And this is what I found really interesting, gentlemen, because a consultant to the board of one of the big companies run by the Exclusive Brethren is former health minister in the Morrison government, Greg Hunt. He is one of the board advisors now. Now, what's interesting about this, gents, is that during COVID, when Greg Hunt was the health minister, that company, which he is now board advisor for with the Exclusive Brethren, had a $54 million worth of contracts to supply RAT, rat tests, and PPE equipment. Now, I don't know. Am I smelling a rat in the cheese factory? Is there something wrong with my senses? What do you think? Phillip Altman, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I smell a rat. Greg Hunt was not our best health minister, and that looks very suspicious from where I sit.
Ian, what are
I,
your thoughts?
I agree with you and Philip. Greg Hunt, I knew for quite some time before he became health minister. I knew him when he was Minister for the Environment, and I had numerous meetings with him, and I thought he understood what good health was all about before we went into the pandemic. But I pleaded with him and Scott Morrison to introduce a vitamin D campaign and try to have everybody's vitamin D levels tested during COVID. And if that had happened, very few people would have got COVID and got it seriously. We would have been out of the pandemic in 6 to 8 weeks. Now, they're the figures that not only myself, but my other colleagues have agreed to. So Greg Hunt endured the prevention and early treatment of COVID in the early days, and I'll never forgive him for that. I pleaded with him on a number of occasions, and in fact, we did a study and we showed that vitamin D actually does prevent COVID, and vitamin C gets patients out of intensive care quickly. And that study was funded by Gina Reinhardt. The study was published and sent to Greg Hunt, and he passed it on to his bureaucrats for comment. Did nothing. And now I find he is part of not only the organisation that you mentioned, Hoodie, but he's also consulting for a wellness organisation. Can you get it? I mean, we're all about health and wellness, and this man basically allowed the disease care industry to flourish through his term as health minister. So I have to agree with Philip, he wasn't the best.
As a general observation, the whole lot of these politicians and bureaucrats misled us, lied to us year after year. They've never apologized. They've never recanted. There's little or no compensation for the harm that they've caused. And I think, probably without exception, the main players in this horrendous case have gone on to bigger and better things.
Yeah.
That's the crime that I see.
Yeah.
And the mRNA plants, this platform, has been so disastrous. It's been the worst pharmaceutical disaster in history. I've been in this industry for more than 40 years, and I've said this, Graham and John, on several occasions, that any other drug with 0.1% of the problems that these COVID vaccines have would have been withdrawn from the market. Why isn't this one been withdrawn? Why is it still on the market? I got a text just this afternoon from my ex-GP in Sydney asking me if I wanted a COVID shot.
Dear, oh dear.
It's
Wow.
just, I mean, I never knew that there was such a thing called negative vaccine efficacy. Ian, I'm not sure if you ever knew of such a thing, but there is such a thing now. Since these COVID vaccines were launched, there is such a thing called negative vaccine efficacy, meaning the more injections you get, the more chance you're going to have COVID. Now, that's just not one study. That's several studies, and that's over worldwide. There's a heap of data online if you like to look, for anyone to look. And yet, for me to get this text this afternoon, it just bowled me over. I couldn't believe it.
It's phenomenal. And Johnny referenced Greg Hunt. I mean, as you've often been heard to say, mate.
Well, you couldn't make this stuff up. Look, I've got to say, just on this, I mean, he's not only on this. I mean, he's on the board of a cancer biotech company called Hemologics, I think, and a number of others. Now, one must be, asking the question, and don't forget too, he's been appointed as a professor, given an honorary professorial thing, whatever you call it, from the University of Melbourne. Now, I just don't know how these people end up after they're on pensions. He'd be on 300 plus a year pension, tax free for life. Now, how do these people end up not being disqualified from working in the portfolios that they were ministers in for a quarantine period? And I'd say minimum of 10 years to ensure that there's no bias or no underhanded nonsense going on. I mean, we saw this with Brad Hazard. Brad Hazard gave out millions and millions of dollars to Careflight as the New South Wales Health Minister, and then ended up on the board of Careflight as a paid chairman within 12 months. Now it's sick. So I don't know what else you can say. I mean, yes, there's a rat in the cheese factory. There's no doubt they're rampant.
Well, the
Absolutely.
worst case, in my opinion, is Professor or Associate Professor John Skerritt from the TGA.
Mm.
I mean, that he is now in the biggest pharmaceutical lobby group in Australia,
You're kidding me.
Yeah. Medicines Australia, isn't it, Philip?
Medicines Australia. It used to be called the APMA, the Australian Pharmaceutical Manufacturers Association, and I was involved with them for a number of years.
My goodness.
It's
It just-
unbelievable. That he's now from TGA straight across to the organisation that produces the medicines that the TGA regulate.
Yeah.
It's the same.
So that's our example here. In the US, it's even worse. Whereas if you're a FDA commissioner on a fairly low salary, you have your sights set on being a director of a multinational drug company, as we've seen so many examples of people who were involved in approving these COVID vaccines and therapies have moved on to get very, very lucrative, highly paid jobs with Big Pharma. And it simply shouldn't be allowed.
Absolutely. It just doesn't pass the pub test at all, does it?
Well, I think if you put it into context, let's put it this way. I mean, this is no different really to the detective sergeant of police at the organised crime squad suddenly winding up as the CEO of a bikie gang.
Exactly. But I mean, interesting to see some of these things revealed on the ABC. The ABC is a despicable organisation. I have to say this, but they are not doing what their remit. They're not acting in the remit that was given to them. But we also saw a 7:30 report, Johnny, through the week on the failures of the vaccine. Fill me in quickly.
Of the scheme to basically compensate patients.
Compensation.
Yeah, the vaccine injury compensation scheme. Thank you very much. That was a pretty strong story as well, except they still keep using this term very rare. Now, the testimony of our Chris Nemeth was fantastic on that program. Chris Nemeth is a guy that's been on our program. We've had a lot of communication with him. He's a wonderful Australian, and boy, some of the stories there, but they're just the tip of the iceberg, Ian Brighthope. That we know you guys all know just how many people are vaccine injured.
Absolutely, Hoodie. I mean, every day I'm getting calls from family members and patients, very sick patients, and the very sick patients are referring even sicker patients. People are dying. They're dying of starvation because they can't eat because of the cancers that are being developed. And I mean, Philip talks about negative efficacy. I mean, I say all my friends know about the negative efficacy of the flu vaccine. They get the flu vaccine, they still get the flu, or it's a milder dose. But with these mRNA injections, I have to say that they are, in my opinion, and I stated it April last year, they are class 1 carcinogens. And I'm developing a group of people behind me who agree with me. but are
Yep.
too frightened to come out and state it. But they are carcinogens and they should be taken off the market straight away. I mean, the Moderna factory at my university, Monash University, should be shut down. And I think Moderna and Pfizer should be sued and sued to the nth degree, because there are people out there who the population don't even know about, who are suffering and suffering severely. You know, papers are coming out. The Italian paper came out about the increase in cancer incidence in vaccinated populations. Now we've got the paper that's come out from South Korea, a study of 8.6 million people, where they actually showed beyond any doubt that the cancers are occurring as a result of vaccination in the vaccinated population. And these
8.6 million.
8.6 million people were studied. There was a definite increased risk of multiple cancers. The period they studied was for 1 year. The adjustment factors included age, sex, comorbidities, income, prior COVID-19 infection. And there was a higher overall cancer risk of 27% in the vaccinated. 27%. Unbelievable. And the lung cancer, an increase of 53%. Prostate cancer, 60%. 69%. Thyroid, 35%. Gastric cancers, very high, 34%. Colorectal, 28%, and breast, 20%. I think the breast is not quite correct, because we're seeing a lot of recurring breast cancers here in the clinics that I'm dealing with.
And multiple breast cancers too, we're told as well. You know, women presenting with 2 and 3 different types of cancer
That's
in
right.
the breast.
Yeah, different genetic
Unbelievable.
cancers. Yeah.
Yeah.
And these
Now,
cancers, are mutating at a very rapid rate, and they're very difficult to treat. But if patients get in early, if people get in early with a diagnosis and change their lifestyle dramatically, they have a much better chance of surviving and beating it. But orthodox treatments are not that good. You go all the way through chemotherapy, radiotherapy, surgery, and then you try the immunotherapy. And I've got patients who've had immunotherapy, and the tumors just take off and grow. So I mean, I have to say I'm not treating people because I'm not registered anymore, but I'm involved with the doctors who are very heavily involved, as Hoody knows. And it's a very sad state of affairs, our health system in this country, when they can't compensate people who are very sick and dying. When we've got an NDIS full of people many who should not be on the NDIS, and others who are very deserving of it but can't get any compensation or get onto the NDIS because they don't qualify. They don't qualify. I just am flabbergasted after all of these years of trying to get my profession to do something about lifestyle and health and diet and nutrients and prevention, and we've got this catastrophic situation, a pandemic that was caused by the needle, not by a virus.
unbelievable. And look, you know, you have some people that I've been associated with who have been availing themselves of protocols centered around you and what you do. And I reiterate, you're not consulting with these people, but the work you've done is being applied. And I've seen miraculous results, unbelievable results. Now, we had a young lady here over the weekend in a group that we had who has survived acute myeloid leukemia because she followed those protocols. She had chemotherapy, which you thought at the time was a good idea given the extent of the leukemia, that it was pretty bad. She had a 20% chance of survival. And she had the fortitude to say, I'm just having enough chemo to get through this. And then they said to her, look, if you don't have a bone marrow transplant, you're going to die. You better have a bone marrow transplant. She refused to have the bone marrow transplant. She just had a biopsy, which shows a bone marrow biopsy that shows after a year that the leukemia has gone. It is gone. And she took the usual treatment, not the usual treatments, but the treatments proposed of high doses of vitamin C and a whole bunch of other things. She did it. Now, when I asked her what did the doctors say when they shared the results of her latest bone marrow biopsy, which was only a few days ago, did they see it was as a miracle? And she said, I asked them that question, and they said, "Oh, well, it was never that bad, really."
Oh, oh,
They
oh!
said it was.
I saw the bone marrow. It was terrible. Normally, I
I,
would say somebody in that situation don't have chemotherapy, but this situation, I had to because she was going to go in a blast crisis if we left it the way it was. It was terrible.
and they actually said, "Oh, it was never that bad to begin with." But she said, "You told me if I didn't get a bone marrow transplant, I was going to die." So this is what we're up against. Now, that's a whole nother subject.
Well,
But there is,
Philip, I think you need to add that to the list of lies that you've got that have been told because you've got.
Well, I'm up to 65 at the moment.
Oh, there's another one for you.
65.
Oh, the lies that have been told are
Yeah.
unbelievable. I mean, they will tell you to have a bone marrow transplant on the basis of a SNP, a slight change in a gene. And they say it's genetic. You've got a gene for leukemia. You must have the bone marrow transplant. Well, I've seen people get perfectly well after not doing anything but having some high dose intravenous vitamin C and the leukemia going away. And they've been told the bone marrow transplant's the important thing to do now. They've had it and they've actually died from septicemia after the transplant and the immunosuppression that occurs. I
yeah,
mean, don't
we've
get me
got a lot
wrong.
to learn.
Could I make another general observation here? Throughout this whole saga, from the very beginning, our government took its cues and instructions from the US. Anything that they recommended, anything the CDC said, or Fauci said, or the US FDA said, was translated here into action. Without question, everything, down to the fine detail. We're now 5 years into this deal. We've seen the damage that's been done. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people have died as a result. The vaccines have been shown by numerous people to do more harm than good. The opinion now in the US, the official opinion in the US, has turned negative. For example, 2 US states, Florida and Louisiana, now declare that the shots to be dangerous. They've used that word. They say that they're dangerous and they should not be used. The US officially is now no longer blanket recommending these vaccines. So what's been the reaction of the Australian government?
The opposite.
The reaction has been zero. Why is that? Why is that? This has never happened with any other therapeutic. I've been around a long time, and I keep repeating it. Any other drug with just a tiniest fraction of problems that these injections had would have been withdrawn. I might mention one of my Substacks, which is on the 10th of July. And in that Substack, I asked the AI Grok on Twitter, what was the probability of 35 deaths occurring, which they did occur under Freedom of Information? This is factual. There have been 35 deaths the day of COVID vaccination. Grok came back to me, and it gave me about 2 pages of background information about the vaccination rate in Australia, how many people were vaccinated, how many people there were in Australia, how many on average would have been vaccinated in a day, went on and on and on. with relevant information. Then it gave me a formula to calculate the probability that 35 people would have died by chance the day of their vaccination and not due to the vaccine. The result by Grok was the probability that they would have died by chance and not due to the vaccination was 0.42 zeros and a 1. That's 10 to the minus 43. Think about that. Now, that's just the 35 deaths that we know of. What if there were 100 deaths or 200 deaths? And if you extrapolate the adverse drug event reporting that the TGA is recording to the real world, you could easily multiply those deaths by 5, 10, 20 times. That's how serious the problem is. And yet, the TGA takes no action. I've been involved with the TGA when there's been a single paper published on a therapeutic that's been registered and widely used in animal studies. Just a single paper that suggested there might be a problem. And the managing director and myself were immediately called to Canberra the following day to explain. Now, something's gone wrong with our system, and our system is broken. And it's something that I would never have dreamt that I would have ever seen in my lifetime.
Well, you raise the subject of what's going on in America and the findings that they've been issuing, and I've looked at it and I've wondered. The Australian government ignores those people who are sounding the alarm here, and they're treating America like a conspiracy theorist. So they just pretend it doesn't exist; it'll go away, and all our information is fed to us by Dr. Norman Swan from the ABC. That's got to make everyone on this screen cringe. And let's not go too far down there, but I mean, it's deplorable what's going on. But we do know that the Americans have done a lot of studies under RFK, and we're assuming that those studies have been broad-ranging, and they're weeding out all the bias from what we can gather. Now, it wasn't long ago, it was 4 years ago, when the CDC in America and the TGA in Australia decided that one of the safest drugs on the market, ivermectin, was dangerous and it had to be removed. Now, a tablet would cost you 4 cents prior to that announcement, and if you could get a tablet under script after that announcement, it was $11.40. How do I know? Because we actually bought ivermectin on a script. The doctor who scripted that ivermectin was suspended and lost his license for prescribing it. And all the media was saying, this is a dangerous drug. It's very, very dangerous. Now in America, when they're talking about paracetamol and how dangerous that is in the real context of creating autism, the Australian bureaucracy and the media are saying, oh, that's ridiculous. Paracetamol is one of the safest drugs out. You've got to be joking. Is anyone picking up on the hypocrisy in all of this at the moment? John, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, look, I think paracetamol's obviously been an issue for some time. I mean, there's been a number of studies done that have led them down that pathway. But I mean, once again, I mean, you find that people are reaching for Panadol or paracetamol after they've given their babies or their children injections that have caused a reaction. Being a high-grade fever. So look, I don't know enough about it, Hoodie, to say whether it's an issue or not. But look, I go back to Tylenol themselves, they in 2017 put out a tweet saying that we don't recommend any pregnant mothers take any of our products. I mean, so if the manufacturer is saying that in 2017, I think it's pretty disingenuous of health ministers in New South Wales and all these other places that are doubling down on Trump and RFK Jr. to essentially say no, and even Nick Coatsworth. I mean, he came out and bagged everyone as well. I mean, these people have got short memories. They got it all wrong during COVID. So what makes us trust them now? And I think that's the thing, the trust. I mean, look at Barry Young. I mean, Philip, was alluding to this a few minutes ago. The data suggesting that 20 or 30 people have died from the one batch given at the one venue on the one day, and a month later they're all dead. I mean, there's 10 plus people in Bulli Hospital that are apparently suffering from cancer as a result of all being vaccinated. I mean, these things,
One particular batch,
a
John.
particular batch. I mean, these aren't coincidences. I mean, this is a joke. I mean, look at the lady down there with the mushrooms. I mean, she the fanfare that went round that. She killed a few people with her mushrooms. Now, I mean, the media are all over it. Police are all over it. Here we've got hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people dead, likely millions of people. How many are injured? Who knows? And there's nothing to see here.
Yeah, the hypocrisy in Brighthope is astounding, isn't it? Where ivermectin has become one of the most dangerous drugs in the world, and now paracetamol's got some black crosses against its name. The Australian government's saying that's a load of rubbish.
Well, it's not a load of rubbish, Hoodie. I mean, ivermectin, there are billions of doses being used in Africa for the prevention of river blindness and other diseases, parasitic diseases in Africa. And it's been discovered since that this anti-parasitic drug that you said was so cheap is also being now used in some of these cancers, in particular the turbo cancers. Ivermectin, fenbendazole, mebendazole, they're all anti-parasitic drugs, and they have active actions that are anti-cancer and block some of the cancer pathways. It's fascinating what we're learning now. And I think it's willful arrogance or willful blindness that is occurring with regard to comparing drugs like that, repurposed medicines, and how useful they are, with vaccines that are of a genetic nature, and we're actually playing God by using the blueprint of life and abusing it in a way that's creating systems in our own biology whereby we're being made genetically different because of the use of these genes, and we're being told lies that the genetic material that's being injected into us doesn't go into the nucleus of our cells and incorporate itself in our own genomes. Well, it is incorporating in our genomes. We know that. Kevin McKernan's done a lot of work along these lines, and others, of course. And people who've been vaccinated really do need to look at their lifestyle and their health and the way they manage their health, because we don't know whether they're going to end up well, or they're going to end up infertile, or with an autoimmune disease, or with a cancer, because it is a slow, low-grade poison that is affecting every blood vessel and probably every nerve and every cell in the body. We don't know how long. We believe it's 700 plus days that the spike protein continues to be produced. But, we come back to the whole thing about the industry is that the vaccines are medicine's sacred cow. You don't touch vaccines. You don't touch the vaccinologists. That is the thing that has saved us from so much infectious disease. And to me, when you really look at how much the vaccines have affected infectious disease, it's been very little. In fact, we have to question the use of every vaccine now, and take this sacred business of the vaccines we're not to be critical of vaccines, otherwise we're an anti-vaxxer. I think I've become a devout anti-vaxxer, and I'm a proud anti-vaxxer because I've looked at all of the vaccines and I don't believe they work. And they may raise antibodies, and that's the way they measure the efficacy of the vaccine. But just having antibodies doesn't confer immunity to the infection.
Exactly. And I'm sure, Ian, you were trained like I was trained. I mean, I was trained not only in academia, but by Big Pharma itself for many years to understand that no drug was safe. You didn't use the safe word. In fact, it was against the law to say a drug was safe. That law was changed only after the introduction of the COVID vaccines in, I believe it was June or July 2021, by my favorite person again, John Skerritt.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
To say that they were safe. That's how they got away with it. Yet they had no data upon which to say that because they had no long-term safety data. The mRNA platform was a brand new class of drug, very dangerous class of drug because it was genetic, and everyone knows they're dangerous and they should be trialed over many, many years to determine the degree of relative safety. And they would only be reserved for use in the most serious life-threatening or critical conditions when there was no other form of therapy. This is why when they provided provisional approval for these things and released them onto the Australian population, they actually broke the law. I've written about this in my Substack. If anyone wants to read about it, it will be in my Substack of the 28th of August, where I quote the provisional approval guidelines. And drugs such as the COVID vaccine were released under provisional approval, but guess what? They were only to be used by definition. You can read the code, you can read the law, for life-threatening conditions. People who did not have COVID, who were not sick, healthy people, were not under threat of death. Yet they were mandated, in many cases, to get the vaccine. The Australian government broke the law. And I've actually written an affidavit for a major court case, which is ongoing now, which describes that aspect of the regulations. They broke the law.
They certainly broke the law, Philip, and we as professionals are trained in terms of the safety of medicines. You as a pharmacologist and myself as a clinician always have to emphasize the risk with these medicines. And we always, when somebody sits in front of you of a patient and you prescribe an anti-inflammatory drug, you have to tell them that may cause peptic ulcers or could cause some hemorrhaging or bleeding. You have to tell patients the side effects. You have to give them full, free, informed consent. And we were stopped from doing that by the government, by the authorities. And by stopping my profession, from us doctors and pharmacologists, pharmacists, from telling the patients the truth and the whole truth and nothing but the truth about these vaccines, we were actually became complicit if we didn't speak up against them. And I think, there's the punishment that was meted out by AHPRA and the medical boards and the government to doctors and pharmacists who actually did speak up against the vaccines or supported the use of ivermectin were suspended or lost their licenses. A shameful thing for a government to do.
First, do no harm.
Yeah, exactly.
First, do no harm.
Primum non jocere, right? That's the Latin for it. I remember it very, very well.
Gentlemen, we had President Trump come out and make a big announcement that there was going to be a big announcement, and everyone was looking forward to. I think a lot of people were looking forward to a ban on mRNA, which didn't occur yet. But the announcement coming out of RFK Jr. and the US Health Department was all around autism and the use of paracetamol, in particular Tylenol, and also they highlighted the fact that all these vaccines, which are given in large quantities, various doses, all at the same time, is actually toxic. And like you need a science degree to work that out. A whole lot of recommendations still coming. We know that. A lot of people disappointed that it didn't go far enough just yet. And I'd like to announce to our audience that Senator Ron Johnson, the Republican senator from Wisconsin, will be making his third appearance on our program in just over a week. And he'll be answering a lot of the questions relating to that. And we've seen him mount some incredible attacks on Big Pharma in estimates in the Senate in the USA. He's doing amazing work. Very well educated senator, and we're grateful for his time getting back onto us again. But let me ask you, Philip, were you surprised by any aspects of the announcements coming out of Washington? Did you think they would go further than they did?
I was very surprised. I thought, given what we know, they were going to make an announcement about the platform, mRNA, and ban anything going forward until they sorted out the problems that we see before us now. Yet the focus was on Tylenol, which is the trade name of the paracetamol or acetaminophen in the US. Now, as I wrote in my Substack, when I was sitting there and listening to that, I thought, well, this is a great example of what's called in debating strategy a limited hangout. What a limited hangout is different from a red herring, right? A red herring is when you're arguing about something here, you mention something way over here to distract people to that other point. A limited hangout is different. What a limited hangout is, you can look this up in the dictionary, is you give people a little bit of truth to think about to distract them from the main game. And I believe that's what was operating there, because the data on paracetamol or acetaminophen is not conclusive. There have been many studies done. Some are better than others, but they all don't point in the same direction. And there's another very important point here, and that is cause and effect. So pregnant women often get vaccinated. And when they get vaccinated, as Ian would know, it's not uncommon for them to develop a fever. And what do they take when they have a fever? They'll take Panadol, paracetamol. So to blame it on paracetamol may be a bit premature. I think the jury is out here. The other thing to consider is that autism is only observable much later on, years later, perhaps 2-3 years later. And there are many cases in the literature where children were vaccinated and almost immediate healthy children that were quite normal, developed signs of autism immediately. So cause and effect, that that's very good evidence for cause and effect. So I think the jury's out, but I also think that Trump and RFK Jr. are under huge pressure. I could not imagine the pressure that they are under. I would guess almost everyone in Congress gets money from big pharma to a greater or lesser extent. And it's the biggest industry there is. And they're the biggest donors. And there's been a lot of criticism about RFK Jr. not moving quick enough. But if you watch closely, as I do every day, I read the information that's coming out, and gradually, ever so slowly, the signs are all there. And I predict, I would make this prediction now, by the end of the year, the FDA will be coming out with a much stronger statement about this platform. I'm hoping that they will withdraw the whole platform until these issues can be resolved, because they need to be resolved. This is just an enormous health issue that's impacting the whole world. And what Ian is talking about with the cancers, yes, they're appearing a year, 2 years, 3 years after the vaccination. That is typical, but more immediate is the cardiovascular effects, the stroke, the heart attacks that we're seeing. And when you add all that together, the impost on our healthcare system is just enormous. And it is just, in my view, given the information that we have, and there's been no good news about these vaccines, not a single bit of good news. Have you ever heard a single bit of good news about?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Mark Butler came out about a year ago and said that the vaccine saved 69 million lives.
Where's the
that is incredible. There's been these statements in these papers. One was a claim of 3 million lives saved worldwide. Then it was 17 million. Then it was 20 million, right? And when you read these papers, they're actually not based on any real data. They're based on modeling. And they're based on assumptions that the vaccines were safe and they were effective. And they were neither safe nor effective. So the modeling is completely wrong. What they should have modeled was the damage that has been done. But of course, this is the real world. There's a lot of money at stake, and that would never be done.
Ian, Brighthope, do you still hold hope that there will be further good news coming out of the US in relation to all this stuff?
Look, I have to say I agree with everything that Philip has just said, and I think when you really do put some critical thinking into all of this, the information coming out is based on modelling, and the modelling has been completely flawed because of a whole range of reasons. The issues were not put into the modelling in the first place. But good news, I think there will be good news, Hoodie, because you can't hide from the truth. And the fact of the matter is the American population are far more awake than the Australian population to what's going on. I think they debate more, they argue more. There's been a debate recently that was, I think, was a bit of a sham debate, but I'm putting it up on my Substack for everybody to have a look at, with regard to where they went wrong and where they went right, and the argument was the public health a failure, for society, or was society a failure for public health? And debaters had to debate on both sides of the fence. And at the end of it, that was basically navel-gazing as far as I'm concerned, because the so-called experts are the people who should be removed out of the equation when it comes into the future, if we're going to see any light at the end of the tunnel. And RFK Jr. has to be aware, of course, of the pressures and forces against him. But he's also a man of very strong faith, and I think he will carry it through. I think he will keep his promise as long as there's no sabotaging of the data and the efforts that he puts into arriving at the truth with regard to these vaccines, both the COVID vaccines and the danger that they're causing. I might add to what Phillip said that sometimes there is almost an immediate flare-up of an existing cancer in some of these patients. So we have to wait for maybe 6 months to 3 years before some of the cancers start occurring. But in some patients, as Gus Dalgleish has actually seen with his melanoma patients, in a very short period of time after the vaccines, the melanomas take off and metastasize and spread. So I think with as much diligence as he possibly can apply, RFK will come out showing that the vaccine schedules for children are very, very dangerous and create an unhealthy population of children. We know that vaccinated populations of children are far less healthy than those who are unvaccinated. And as a clinician, I mean, I've seen acute onset of autism in patients. I mean, 1/3 of my practice was general medicine, another third was cancer, and another third was diabetes and autoimmune diseases. The mums that would bring their kids in after a vaccine and say the child is not behaving normally and it'd be head banging and all of that sort of thing within 24, 48 hours, even sometimes. You can't deny that it was a vaccine that caused it when it's repeatable. You see it as a clinician, but when you send them off to the children's hospital and the children's hospital say, oh, the child's got a febrile convulsion or whatever, the child doesn't have the same, and the mother knows it, and the mothers are the ones that we should be listening to. And also, if you ask mothers about the history of their child and really dig in deep and ask the difficult questions, when your baby was vaccinated, did it have a fever? Oh, it got a little bit unwell. I gave it some Panadol, but the next day it was okay. Was it better, as good as it had been? Well, no, the child never really was the same before that series of vaccines. It was unwell, and then 3 months later it got this rash, and then 6 months later it developed eczema, and 12 months later it developed asthma. These are not these are stories that are quite common. And I can remember sending a child who had a febrile convulsion within 12 hours to the Royal Children's Hospital here in Melbourne, and they diagnosed epilepsy. And that child will be on anti-epileptic medication for the rest of its life. And it didn't look like epilepsy to me. It looked like a febrile convulsion. I mean, my profession's got a lot to learn. I'm still learning myself after 50 plus years of practice. I mean, medicine has been hijacked, or health has been hijacked by medicine, and medicine has been hijacked by big pharma business. And we just have to break that vicious cycle and get people back to healthy lifestyles, and mums and dads knowing how to look after children and feed them properly and keep them healthy. I just am bewildered that there are so many people in Australia who, well, I consulted for the Jenny Craig weight loss centres at one stage, and discovered that a third of the women who came in didn't use vegetables in their cooking.
Unbelievable.
Didn't know how to cook vegetables. You knew how to cook up a steak and eggs and whatever, which is not a bad thing to do. But we've got a lot of educating to do. As RFK says, I mean, the diet in the US is terrible and causing a lot of illness and disease. It's the same here.
Yeah, that's for sure. Johnny Larder.
Well, I think there was a bit of noise around all that launch in relation to autism, Hoodie, but I think the media got distracted by the Tylenol, the paracetamol, and that's what they went for, the easy grab. But I mean, if you listen to RFK Jr., he was very, very down this pathway, exactly what Ian was just saying there. 40 to 70% of the mothers reported that their child was injured from a vaccine. And immediately in Australia, the media were getting grabs of pediatricians from such and such university and saying, well, you know, my view is that people shouldn't just hold on to that because they can't recall one day from the next and whether their child had a fever after a after a vaccine or not. So, you know, we have to dispel that and we have to, etc. But I thought that was interesting, and it demonstrated to me that RFK is serious about getting to the root cause of the problem. I think the Panadol was thrown in as a bit of a so it wasn't so unpalatable for everyone, so they could introduce it slowly. And there was a number of things that made me believe that was the case. The fact that the hepatitis B vaccine, they were going to push that back to 12 years of age. And then, like in Japan, they were essentially saying that the MMR, they were going to break it up into one dose individually, not do it all at once. And they were talking about the Amish. Now, I don't know why there's not more studies being done in relation to the Amish, because it seems very odd to me that they don't have any issues with vaccines in their society, in their communities. So how come there's no autism there, for instance? How come these events that we're experiencing in everyday lives in mainstream Australia and US and all these other first world countries are not being experienced by the Amish? That to me is a bit odd, and that should be reviewed. But the thing that I did get worried about, I've got to say, was Trump said, well, we're not anti-vaccine, are we, Bobby? We're not anti-vaccine. Look what we did with Warp Speed. We got that up and running in 9 months.
I know.
And that to me was a bit of a worry, I've got to say. But I do believe that Bobby Kennedy is on the hunt behind the scenes and is going to flush all these grubs out. There is no doubt about it. And I mean, Trump is going to send Moderna broke, and that's a good thing. The Moderna factory down at your university there, that hopefully will end up going bankrupt because Trump's going to put 100% tariff onto pharmaceuticals coming in. So good luck selling anything Moderna in Australia. What a great investment by our moron government to invest in that garbage facility. I mean, these people are wacko.
It certainly are.
Yeah, look, I'll tell you what, when truth comes up against ego, and that's what we see when RFK and Trump are sharing a press conference together, you've got to expect the unexpected. And you can see whenever Trump's involved in a press conference with other guys who are doing whatever they're doing, there's an awful lot of holding a breath. What's he going to come out with next? And I think, I think you don't have to be blind Freddy to work that out. But I want to throw another curler at you, gentlemen, because I got a text message when that announcement was made from Anita Halfmeister from the Australian Vaccine Risk Network, and she was in tears because she said this was an announcement that they've been waiting for, namely the breaking down of the schedule so that kids weren't getting toxic shock from having mass doses of different vaccines all at once. But Saturday Telegraph did a story where it looks like one of their reporters had infiltrated a Facebook group in relation to this, and they were poo-hooing the fact that mothers were considering that these vaccine schedules were the cause of sudden infant death syndrome. The question I need to ask you both is, do you think there is a connection that is at least worthy of investigation?
Oh, absolutely. Can I go first?
Go.
Okay, there's been a bit written about this, and it's very interesting. I forget the state. I think it was either Michigan or Wisconsin, where a police sergeant, a woman from memory, took it upon herself to investigate something like, from memory, 270 SIDS deaths in the state. And what she found was amazing. What she found was that these deaths, something like a majority, like 70%, don't quote me, this is from memory, it's a ways back. About 60 or 70 or 80% of the 270 SIDS deaths occurred within 3 days of vaccination.
Yeah.
Now, the temporal association, you cannot ignore. These are otherwise healthy babies. This has been buried. This is typical, but that alone, that single piece of evidence, should have triggered a major investigation, in my opinion.
Well, I agree with you, Philip, 100%. And I'm aware of that information as well. And it's not only a temporal thing. I mean, the Bradford Hill criteria can be applied to this as well, I think. And I believe that there is a mechanism of action, and where these children probably die from either a respiratory arrest or a cardiac arrest. There's not much pathology to be seen in most of them. And the mechanism of action is of the nature of what we call free radicals. When you inject a foreign chemical into somebody, they'll start producing radicals. They're called free radicals. These are chemicals that are part of the reaction of the body to a foreign substance being injected. And it's usually to help to prevent the body from reacting too badly. But sometimes, when there are not enough antioxidants in the system, and these probably occur in infants who are not being properly breastfed, there are other reasons, of course, but the free radicals take over and you end up with microclotting, and the microclotting occurring in the brainstem, and all of a sudden the child just dies, and there's nothing else. And we know that you just have to, there's a very small area of the brainstem where the respiration and heart rates are determined. It doesn't take much to block that off and stop the breathing. When I turned my screen off before, I jumped across to a little library I've got in the kitchen here to get my little book. It's called Every Second Child.
Mm-hmm.
It was written by a colleague of mine. He's passed, Dr. Archie Kalakarinos. And this is where I believe that we need to educate RFK Jr. and others about the importance of micronutrients. Because Archie Kalakarinos was looked after in the desert in Central Australia after opal mining for some time. It was looked after by a tribe of Indigenous people. And he noticed when the Department of Health went through the area that children would get very sick and many would die. And it was because of the vaccines that they were being given. The book is called Every Second Child because after one event, every second child had passed away. And he discovered by giving these children a big shot of vitamin C into the buttocks, the moribund children, as they were brought in dying, would show signs of recovery. He'd give them another shot, and he'd probably give them 3 or 4 shots of vitamin C. and they would recover. And what I'm saying here is that these children had what I was talking about before, these free radicals floating around in their system doing damage and more disease. They're mopped up by the vitamin C, if you like. It's an antioxidant. And this is the message that I'm trying to get across to my colleagues in intensive care all around the world, that you don't have to put people on ventilators if they're in sepsis, or if somebody is reacting badly to a medicine or a drug or a vaccine. Just give them some vitamin C. And if they're sick enough, you give it intravenously, and you witness rapid recovery in people, even people who are dying, even people on ventilators and are going to be switched off and allowed to die. You can actually recover them. We've witnessed that, and we have to. I'm going to preach that until the day I die.
Now, Ian, I've got to say that some of the people that we've been working with together, who are going through treatments in hospital. The hospitals, the regimes are such that the families supporting these people suffering from cancer in hospital have to smuggle vitamin C in to give to them. And they have to disguise it in various forms and make out that they're just having a juice drink or something like that. There is a screaming need, is there not, for some kind of integrative specialist or a team of integrative medical specialists to be available in hospitals who can facilitate the introduction of these protocols in an environment like a public hospital system. There needs to be someone who can liaise with oncologists and other specialists to say, these people have a right to try. I can administer these treatments. I can arrange for these treatments to be administered, instead of having to go through all this cloak and dagger stuff.
Yeah, absolutely, Hoodie. I mean, during COVID, we trained over 200 nurses to give IVs. They came down to Melbourne after they were allowed to come down, of course, and they've now gone back to where they came from. And let me add that one of the physicians who was kicked out of the hospital in Alice Springs came and stayed with me for a month, learned how to give IV nutrients, and she's gone back there and she's got some nurses back in Alice Springs starting it off. She was kicked out of the hospital because she asked questions about the vaccine. Now, it's starting to happen, but I shouldn't have to be telling or asking the relatives and friends and family to hide ascorbic acid or sodium ascorbate in a bottle of black cherry juice. But that's what we're having to do. But it's getting people well, you know. And look, the side effects, I keep telling them, the side effects of wind, loose bowels, and chronic good health.
But there's a problem with vitamin C.
What's
It's
that?
inexpensive.
Oh, yes, sir. Well, we can't make any money out of it, Philip.
No.
So forget about it.
No, it's a huge problem.
Well, this is the problem. There's no willingness in this country to actually do things that don't cause any harm. I mean, that there is no negative to that. I mean, it should just automatically be the case that somebody is given that, and probably they wouldn't even end up in intensive care if they were giving it in hospitals as a regime. I mean, when you go into hospitals, as you guys well know, I mean, you look at the diets. I mean, I remember when we were in there with Luke at the Children's Hospital, and I couldn't believe the food that was being pushed out. You know, lemonade and chocolate milks and all this sort of stuff. I mean, it wasn't really what I mean. Yes, the kids might have liked it, but it wasn't really what they needed at the time. I don't think. But back to the SIDS. Can I just say? It's amazing, isn't it? Like we talk about sending people to Mars and all this sort of nonsense. Now, how is it that in relation to SIDS, people are happy to call you cookers, they're happy to say you're mad, but it would be so easy in a first world country like Australia and call upon other first world countries where you have a system where first responders or paramedics take very good notes when they go to patients, and especially if it's a baby that's deceased, because they know that it's going to be looked at by the police and by any other statutory authority. So they take very good notes. Now, how hard would it be for someone like New South Wales Ambulance to go back through all the infant deaths that paramedics have attended over numerous years, where they do have very good medical records, and they're all electronic. And I would bet that you could run a doctorate program on working out what's going on with SIDS just from the data that you could collect from that subset of people. It wouldn't be hard, but once again, they don't want to know the answers.
No, they don't.
And what really irks me, gentlemen, is this story that I talked about in the Saturday Telegraph, where journalists had snuck in and infiltrated a Facebook group of anti-vaxxers. If only they would turn their talents towards investigating what's really going on the other side of the fence, instead of digging down. I mean, it's ludicrous. The way the press operate in this country is absolutely ludicrous. And but I think we're running out of time, and you guys have been very generous. A final short statement from each of you, starting with you, Philip.
Well, basically, now that we've all been looking very closely at vaccines in general for 5 years now, and RFK in particular, it can be safely said that no vaccine has been shown to be safe. No vaccine has been shown to be safe in placebo-controlled, true placebo-controlled, randomized trials on a large scale. So that's where RFK is going. And I really hope he gets there, and he has my full support. I also suspect that Trump knows all this. And you have to read between the lines with Trump. He often just drops a line or two here or there, and he'll come back to it. So I think he and RFK Jr. are a potent team, and they've revised the people they've replaced a few people in the FDA, certainly in the CDC, and they're moving in the right direction. And I think we just have to give them a little bit of space. Yeah. They're up against enormous resources that are fighting against them and resisting, and the whole media is against them. So I think we have to cut them a little bit of slack, but I think they're going to get there.
Let's hope that that RFK doesn't follow down the family trait of being assassinated. That seems to be the way things go in America.
No, I'm always worried about that.
And I think he's an incredibly courageous man, despite what people think of him for doing what he's doing. Ian, your final thoughts?
Oh, my final thoughts, Hoodie. I think my final thoughts are to maintain our education and training and teaching, keep the communications going. Hopefully, we can communicate more with our US counterparts. I do with my colleagues over there, of course. And spread the word that improving people's lifestyle, their diets, the judicious use of supplements, getting some sunshine and proper exercise, and maintaining a positive attitude to the future and opposing those forces that are trying to control us. A very important part of my future, and hopefully my future with you guys as well. So yes, thank you for the invitation. And John, you're doing a great job.
And one last comment from me. I only wish I had a doctor like Ian if I was choosing my doctor.
Oh, you're not wrong.
He is special.
You're not wrong. And you know what? I can tell you, he's very generous as well. I worry about him because he makes himself too available. And it's never about the dollars with Ian Brighthope. It's anyway, you got a wonderful name, Ian, and it suits you very, very well. Very well. I've seen you give a bright hope to so many people in the last couple of years that you and I have been working together. And for those of you who want to see the program we're doing together once a week, it's called Health Chats. It's on Facebook and probably other channels as well. You can also access it, I believe, through the Hoodies Heroes Network. It's great. People are loving it, and it's just good, healthy advice in answering questions. Johnny Larder, I think we've got to bring this to a close.
We do, Hoodie. But I'll just give a big shout out to the guys on the Vax bus and say just keep doing all your great work. Don't worry about what the Daily Telegraph says. They're just helping you along. And in fact, I can see a time coming up in the not too distant future where government buses are going to be displayed with the Vax bus symbol. There's no doubt about it. I mean, that's where we're heading. People are waking up to this nonsense. They've had enough. They've been conned. They've been fooled. And the organisations like APRA, the TGA, and all these other grubby outfits that are on the take, and that's what you are, you're on the take, you can't be believed. You can't be believed. So you just couldn't make that stuff up.
And the Vax bus is going to be in Bowral on Tuesday, the 18th of November. And I'm making arrangements now to make them feel very welcome.
Well done, Phillip. And it was also lovely to have you supporting us at the rally on the 13th as well, mate. It was great to see you in Sydney there. I've got to do the customary prayer because we need all the help we can get. Dear Lord Father in heaven, we thank you for these wonderful men and all those people like the AVRN and all these doctors who are speaking up now, and some of the media are starting to speak up. Lord, we know that truth is going to ultimately come out, and there'll be gnashing of teeth. And Lord, we're not out there seeking vengeance. We're seeking remedy. So please, there are many, many people who are sick and dying who need the proper treatment. So I really pray that that real health will come into our country by the means that of which we've been talking tonight. So please bless these gentlemen and bless our country. We ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Well, that's it. Phillip Altman, Ian Brighthope, absolute treasures, national living treasures. Thank you to you both. Johnny, you've often been heard to say,
you just couldn't make this stuff up.
Stay out of the trees, everyone. And don't forget, if you love this country, stand up for it. And get out and enjoy the sunshine. I had a great day outdoors today. The weather was beautiful. I was on the mower and it was good to just get out and forget all this rubbish for a while and take a breather. So God bless you all.
One final thing, Hoodie. If you can afford it, if you can get out there and support manufacturing in Australia, get onto our mates up at Drifter. They're struggling a bit at the moment, and it would be really good if Australia could get behind Luke. He's been an absolute supporter of us and all the guys, whether it be the Cali Hotel, the Minori Pantry, there's so many of them, cookers. We're so grateful for all those Australian businesses that are out there doing it tough at the moment. And if you can help them, try and do that. That'd be really good.
Now, Luke at Drifter's got a bit of a surplus of our merchandise there, John, that he's happy to get rid of. So
he has.
He's
got a new milk crate bag with a seat on the top, padded seat, so you can take it to the cricket or the footy or down and sit at the Vax bus. Whatever you like. It's a really good product. I'm sure we could. I'm sure if you mention Club Grubbery when you order, you'll get something extra in the mail.
Yeah, terrific stuff. And we thank Luke for all his support over the years. All right, gentlemen, so great to have you on. And good night, Australia. We'll see you. Perhaps a couple of updates before we interview Senator Ron Johnson. That'll be another ripper. How good it is to get these people on. We're doing not too bad for a little laundry outfit, are we? God bless you, and we'll see you next time on Club Grubbery. Bye for now.
Goody. Thanks, John. Bye.